All right, welcome back to the Never Less Than Ill podcast. I'm your host, Justin Ivy, and with me here is my co-host and the mastermind behind Bros Who Think, Mr. Lynn Burton. How you doing, Lynn?
I'm doing well, man. Really enjoyed your episode with Kyle last week. I don't know if I told you about it. I thought it was great, and I think people definitely should check that out. And just the fact that like the De La Soul stuff was going on in the news, it was very educational, and I really enjoyed that conversation. Super excited for today's.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, a lot of fun talking to Kyle about De La, but this week we're going to take it back to the South. We're going to another group, one of my favorite groups, and one that probably deserves way more recognition in terms of the all-time greats in the all-time rankings of the South, especially CunninLynguists, Deacon the Villain, and Natti. We're going to get all into it with somebody very close to them, Mr. Sheisty Khrist, an incredible MC, and someone that CunninLynguists fans know very well from all his guest appearances with them over the years, and some collaborations as well, which we'll get into in this conversation with him. Really excited to be talking to Sheisty, a real good dude, and someone that knows the CL story about as good as anyone. So I can't imagine. You'll find we got some good behind the scenes stories. I will tease that. So we'll jump right into it right now. Let's kick it over to Sheisty Khrist. All right, we're here to talk CunninLynguists with my man Sheisty Khrist. How you doing, my man?
Man, I'm good, my brother. So good, man. How about yourself?
Oh man, doing pretty well. Glad to be talking to you, and man, glad to be getting somebody, right on the. I kind of like to think of you as the Capadonna or the street linguist. It's like yeah, not officially in the group, but it might as well be.
My brother.
So to get started, I always like to ask our guests, what was the first time that you heard CunninLynguists? Did you know them before they were even CunninLynguists?
Yeah. So Natti and I go back a very long ways. He is a member of a rap group that I was in called Mad Militia, and so we go back to our teens. So I knew Natti way back then, and of course, as it comes to CunninLynguists proper, obviously because of that connection, I knew the brothers. But we had always heard of each other. I knew Deacon as a battle rapper. His word in the streets was that he was pretty tough with the battle style. So we knew each other.
Nice. So in terms of CunninLynguists' early days, I know that they had they started in different groups when it was just and Deacon.
Yeah. And, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, with the Continuum and Ill Star. So but they finally link up together, and as we say, the rest is history, and we get this album Will Rap for Food. Do you remember the first time you heard Will Rap for Food?
Yeah, I probably heard that record for the first time. There's a local record store called Sammy's Music, or it was called Sammy's Music then. It's called The Album now, and he always had CunninLynguists stuff there. In fact, if you're familiar with the CunninLynguists story, they actually credit Sammy with leaking the CunninLynguists record, and of course the rest is history there. So yeah, probably there at the album. To be perfectly honest, put that on, and really incredible album.
So what was, especially in Kentucky, it's when somebody thinks of the Kentucky scene, it's like, for hip hop fans, it's almost like non-existent except for Nappy Roots, like that one moment, in terms of the mainstream recognition.
Right.
The CunninLynguists, although there's the Atlanta Tide, they're really one of the first to emerge from Kentucky, and get that wider recognition. What was
absolutely?
What was it like in the Kentucky scene, experiencing them kind of get that wider recognition?
So this might sound weird, but where I'm from, Lexington, you have Lexington and you have Louisville. Where I'm from, we're known for being great rappers, you know. And so, to be perfectly honest, when those guys blew, we just knew it was an extension of the local scene. To be perfectly honest, and just had nothing but respect for what they were doing in the larger scene.
So yeah, I think back to like how I first encountered them. I'm pretty sure it was LimeWire, honestly. Like
That sounds about right. Probably from Sammy's Links.
It may have very well been that, because I just remember hearing, I think the song that I first heard was Linguistics. And
right.
Obviously that's still a staple of them.
Oh man, that song goes so hard, man.
But I remember being, I'm sort of like discovering the world, in that early 2000s, like discovering the world of underground rap, like, proper. And I just remember, Deacon's line about the music makes me high, even though I stay away from cannabis, like Wyclef. I was just
like Wyclef. Yeah.
I'm like automatically a fan.
Yeah, and again, I think that line really kind of illustrates Deacon's sort of frame of reference back then, because again, Deacon was a battle rapper, and there he is in a meta kind of way referencing a battle, So that's a really interesting line, and a great line at that.
Yes, it is kind of fascinating too, because that Will Rap for Food album is like, when you go on into the rest of the discography, No's sound like gets a lot more Southern, I guess, for lack of a better word. It's that Will Rap for Food album almost sounds like it could have been an East Coast album, or it could have been.
It was like a boom bap.
Yeah.
Really, early on, I think specifically maybe those first two records were certainly more East Coast boom bappy records.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so it gets to Southern Underground, their second one, and maybe that's, just from the title itself, maybe some people sort of realize, they're from the South, and then they kind of beat your head into it a little bit to like make sure you understand this. They got the record called the South, they got the title track. It's like, hey, wait a minute, we're not an East Coast group.
Man, hey, listen, Three Stack said it, man. The South got something to say, and I think at that time, the lines of delineation between coast was very, very important. So at that time in hip hop, you had to say exactly where you were from and who you were representing if you stood a chance in sort of staying relevant in hip hop. If you were East Coast, hey man, I'm from the East Coast and I rep that. If you're from the West Coast, you were saying I rep that. So I do think that's a sign of the time, to be perfectly honest.
And one of the things that obviously stands out on that record is it's their one and only with Mr. SOS.
Right.
And I don't know, what do you remember back then? Did he come into the Kentucky scene at all, or was
I don't really remember SOS. I met SOS later, after he had departed from the group. So I don't really recall SOS as much as No in those early years, and obviously Deacon and Natti as well. So SOS was really someone, to my purview, someone I would meet much later. I think I may have met SOS 2009, 2010.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Right, yeah. And it was, it wasn't like SOS was banished from the group. Like they would work together in later years. And
absolutely.
Yeah. And so, but
Strange Journey Volume 1.
Yeah, exactly. And so but I do kind of feel like that era of like SOS being involved kind of overlaps with them kind of getting that Q&5 connection. And
yeah, for sure.
Obviously start working with Tone Deaf and all those guys on there. They
incredible guys.
Like, yeah, Q&5 probably gets not enough credit in the circles of that early 2000s underground.
Yeah, facts.
because I think of it as, maybe it wasn't as big as Def Jux or Rhyme Sayers, but it was still a very, major player. And I think that's how I might have discovered, those compilations, those asterisk compilations that Cunning Linguists.
And good stuff, man.
Yeah, Superstition was on there.
Man, yeah.
FM. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's good time.
Got introduced to like Natti on those, was like the Kinfolk records.
Yeah. Well, see, it's funny because the Kinfolk stuff, I mean, for you to kind of know that, you're ahead, because Kinfolk really is the foundation of Natti and Deke, that's where that kind of begins, so good stuff. But yeah, Q and 5 is definitely I think overlooked in the pantheon of like great collectives, but it's understandable. I mean, there's only so much room in hip hop for for groups, it's collectives, if you will.
Yeah, every year, a few more get packed on, and so people, trying to rank them, and they get missed or whatever. But another thing I did want to point out about Southern Underground was that was their first time Master Ace collabed with them. And,
Seasons, man.
Yeah, Seasons is such a good record, and we actually covered Master Ace on this podcast and had mentioned that Deacon produced a record for him, and it was like, man, like just that Ace was that tuned into the underground to like go to Deacon for a record. Like that just proves like just how looking forward Ace was even in that era.
Oh, absolutely, man. I think, specifically with Master Ace, I mean, if you look at, sort of his trajectory in hip hop, even up to the modern era, he's always kind of one step ahead of the curve, like he understood the whole 808s movement. Obviously he understood, like where hip hop was moving sonically. And I'd actually love to hear Ace go back to that 808s. I'd love for him to do that one more time, to be perfectly honest. But Ace understood that, hey man, the South got something to say, man. Deacon's got something. He got some heat over here, man.
Yeah, I think that's one thing is we always kind of think of No as the producer, No as the guy making the beats, traditionally, but Deacon has always been great on the boards too, and
incredible.
Honestly, probably gets overlooked a little bit in terms of just how much he contributed to the sound.
Yeah, I think that's just I have a theory about that. I think ultimately people can only consume so much. They can only take in so much data, and it's like once you start, Noah is such an incredible, producer that once you start really thinking about how incredible a producer Deacon is, that really causes conflict and friction, so the brain kind of, I know it's a strange theory, but the brain kind of like, it's like, no, we can only handle so much of this stuff. But yeah, Deacon definitely gets overlooked as a producer. He's incredible. He's an incredible producer.
So, as those, in between those albums, they start doing the Sloppy Seconds mixtapes, and so we're getting the kind of a, it's that era of the mixtape, kind of compilations, a little more freestyles, things like that. And so we're getting to kind of see some of the people they're working with. But then the big change is when Natti gets brought into the fold.
Yeah, buddy.
This is strange. Yeah. Like this is, to this day, it's still my favorite CunninLynguists album. This is the one that, people, labeled the classic. This is the kind of the breakthrough. What do you think it was about Natti that just changed the whole dynamics of the group?
Well, so to give you a little bit of perspective about Mad Militia, it's Deacon is often referred to Mad Militia as Wu-Tang before Wu-Tang. I mean, it's like, so imagine, 30 rappers all out for blood, even internally, and Natti kind of comes from that. And so if you hear, if you're listening to that record, you really kind of hear the underpinnings of Militia, really in Natti. I mean, not to take anything away from Natti, obviously, because he's the one putting these incredible things together. But you really hear him, I think, stretch their sound, really add a kind of a street grit, to the stuff, what an incredible MC, what an incredible writer. Natti is off the charts good.
Absolutely. And, I do think Natti also, and I think they've spoken about this before, is kind of added to that southernness, as they kind of get more, the sound kind of gets more almost like an evolved Goody Mob, a little bit of Suave House almost. And just Natti just kind of adds to that. And, just that distinctive voice he has, is just kind of adds to that flavor. And it just works so well on A Piece of Strange with the whole, they're getting into the Christianity Bible Belt aspect of Deacon's life and tackling racism and mixed race children, and it just all kind of great concepts that are being dealt with on that album. And that Southern lean to it just kind of was so perfect to have Natti involved on it.
Yeah, he has such a syrupy Southernness about him. I don't know if you ever met Natti, but he and I are very similar. We don't meet strangers. If we're at the gas station pumping gas, we're both talking to the person next to us. That's kind of how we are. We really just don't meet strangers. And but he really brought that strong sense of Southern to where I think the fellas were evolving anyway. I mean, I think some of those things were already present in that second record, to be perfectly honest.
Absolutely. I think that's, I honestly, one of my favorite interviews I ever did with the guys was just talking nothing but A Piece of Strange with them.
Yeah.
And, I do think like you said, is Deacon's background, being raised by a pastor is it really got to shine, for the first time in a way. It's like those, not that the first two albums aren't good and that they're the rapping is great, but it was just like he got to go to a new level of storytelling. And
Thanks.
and so A Piece of Strange just showed that in a sea of good rappers, like this was a guy that was elite. This was a guy that could take it to the next level.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny because you in a very interesting way, you can't imagine CunninLynguists without Natti. It's almost like he was there in spirit from the very beginning. It's almost like they were working towards Natti, in a lot of ways, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, it is kind of funny in that, I guess you see it in rock bands sometimes, where like a member gets added years later and they are just essential to it. But it's like, it's so rare in hip hop to think of somebody coming in on the third album and being just, and not being able to imagine the group without that person. And that really does personify what Natti is like you can't, it's hard to think of CunninLynguists. You
can't. You literally
like
cannot think of CunninLynguists.
Those first two albums feel more like the prelude to CunninLynguists now.
Exactly. Prelude to Natti. Natti Linguist.
I like that.
Natti Linguist. Yeah, no doubt about it.
So, each of those first three albums, there had been kind of a few years, 2 years gaps in between them.
Mm-hmm.
Dirty Acres is the first one that's right after. Boom! Next year they come out with it. And this is also the first one where we get to see you on there.
Yeah, for sure. On Gun.
Yeah, exactly. So, I did want to get kind of the insider perspective on that. What was the, thinking on Gun as a concept, and how did you get involved in it?
Well, so this may come across a little, this may be a little long-winded. I apologize in advance. So few people know this about me, but I was one of those retired MC kind of MCs. And one of our militia members, Vegas Posada, rest in power to the great Vegas Posada, who's actually on Natty's record. We're on the same record on Natty's record. But he got locked up. And because he got locked up, I began to think, and a lot of the crew began to think, well, let's do a mixtape for Vegas, And because of that mixtape, I kind of unretired and came back, started doing music a little bit, really just to kind of put that mixtape together. And once that mixtape was done, I was going to exit again. And so Deacon, being the genius that he is, said, "Hey, let's get you in on this KY Aliens project," which is I don't know if you're familiar with this project, but it was a project that we did. So you're ahead,
Yeah, this is like,
so,
that was like you were talking about, that was like 30 MC, like all kind of people were involved in that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But during that process, they were in the process of recording that album, and so the guys invited me to record on that record. To which I probably was very like, okay, sure, I'll drop something for that, because I was really trying to exit the game. But I credit Deacon with he's a great magician, because he has found ways to trick me into staying in rap, literally in ways that people don't realize. He's found ways to trick me into staying in rap. And so I think that was kind of the beginning of it. It was like, you know what, man, this guy's he's a pretty decent wordsmith. He's a local guy, which is something CunninLynguists always has done. Always work with the local guy. And we need to get him on a record. And so they put me on that record, and that, kind of began, years and years and years of just working on CunninLynguists projects. So very, very long-winded, but that literally, so to give you an insight, Deacon has tricked me into staying in hip hop, I swear to you, for probably 10 or 15 years.
Well, we gotta thank Deacon for making sure we get all these verses from you.
No, seriously. Seriously.
So I'm thinking, as somebody that, like you were saying, you were on the, path of I'm gonna exit this. So what is it like? Dirty Acres comes out, CunninLynguists has this, not only this underground following, but this massive following in Europe.
Yeah.
Where, are you suddenly like blown back by this attention? Like suddenly there's a bunch of people, in Germany that know who Sheisty Khrist is.
Yeah. But it's funny because, when your eye is on the exit, you don't really pay attention to stuff like that. I've always been very thankful for the fan. I feel like CunninLynguists fans are like the most loyal fans. Like they will not only support you, but they buy your records. CunninLynguists fans are extraordinary in this way. And so for me, I think they saw me, rightfully so, as more of a family member to Cunnin, and that's stretched on since,
Absolutely. What's also cool about that record is I almost think of like Dirty Acres as giving us kind of a preview of what they would do on the Strange Journey, because we start seeing kind of the more of the outside guests. We start seeing Fonte and Devin the Dude and the Witch Doctor. And I love their choices of guests on that album, because it was sort of Southern artists that had that similar sensibility and that similar, maybe, overlooked Southernness almost, guys that really represent the South, but maybe don't get, listed in the article about these are the guys that are, the Southern MCs, type of thing.
Yeah.
What did you think about Dirty Acres, just as a, from the fan perspective of that album following up?
Well, so it's very interesting because you kind of know, and so when people attach their sort of perspective of a group to a specific record, it's very difficult to kind of like stretch their understanding of like, this is where we're going next. You know what I mean? Because people were leaning on A Piece of Strange, this, beautiful, dark, sort of semi-melancholic, piece of work. And then of course they took melancholy to the next level, but of course, addressing race and space and just a whole plethora of things. And I knew in some ways, I knew that it might be difficult for people to take the road with them, but at the same time, Noah is such an incredible producer and writer, and so are Deacon and Natti. it's almost impossible not to go on that journey, with them, no pun intended, going to the strange journey stuff. But yeah, man, I felt like, that record was the record, I think, that defined them as Southern, specifically Southern. I think there were hints of that in A Piece of Strange, but I think with Dirty Acres was like, we are legitimately from the South, and we want to give you everything that the South has to offer, good and bad.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point too. Like, especially a record like KKKY, like that, obviously I mentioned them earlier, like Nappy Roots, we know, but it's like, that was a record. I never thought of a record like just encapsulating Kentucky and like just bringing it to the hip hop world in a way like that. And it's just, and it's not like, it's not like a pride record. It's like this is just the real record of what we're going.
Yeah, this is the fucked up aspect of like where we live,
mm-hmm.
and sort of the underpinnings of racism, and it's, again, sort of an aggressive form of racism.
Mm-hmm.
KKKY is like, we're gonna give you a banger, but in the same perspective, we're gonna talk about the plight of the South, which I think is true to CunninLynguists. It's true to the brand, so to speak.
Absolutely. So as we get to the the Strange Journey series, they actually revisit the record, and you're involved in the KKKY remix.
Yeah.
Obviously that's a dope song. To me, like, to this day, I still adore the Georgia remix, because it was like,
right. I love that, man.
I always just felt like, to me, like, CunninLynguists were like the children of Goody Mob in a way.
Oh, absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so it's like getting Cujo on there was just so perfect.
Yeah. I mean, and it's funny because, well, and not only that, but I mean, Cujo and oh man, what's that?
Killer Mike, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But also the poet. Big Rube. Yeah. No, I felt so bad in bringing Big Rube up and not knowing Big Rube's name. And then, in that moment, like, I feel like I failed at life at that moment. But like, yeah, that was kind of the stamp. That was saying, hey, you know what? We're going to give props, where they're due. We're going to give, this is what this comes from. We are an extension of this, and we're going to honor and respect that. I want to go back and say one thing. You mentioned earlier Fonte.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about how dope that Fonte verse is.
Mm.
And to me, in the pantheon of like Fonte verses, I mean, that might be a top 10. That might be a top 10 verse from Fonte. I think it could be argued.
Oh, I agree. I think yeah, top 10 definitely. It might even be top 5. Like, that's like,
I'm with you. I didn't want to, because Fonte's got some verses.
Oh yeah, he's got some.
So,
like, I think, like, for me, Fonte, it's like the Boondock Saints verse is always number 1, because he was just pissed off and,
right,
and going off. But it's like, yeah, Yellow Lines is definitely somewhere in my top 5. Like that.
Oh man,
he was just going
so
in.
good, so good.
I loved it too. Like I said, like, Little Brother, another one, is like, just not getting that Southern stamp for whatever reason, from some people. But it's like, if you're a Southerner and you listen to, like, you just have this immense pride in groups like CunninLynguists and Little Brother, because it's like, yes, you're showing that there's something else down here. Like, we're not just one style. Like, we have a lot of different, a lot of diversity.
Stuff. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you mentioned the Tilas, and we can throw in the Master P's, and then we can throw in the Dungeon Families and the CunninLynguists, and there's so much the South represents. I mean, it's endless, and it's pretty dope stuff, man. It's pretty dope stuff.
So with that, as they go into the Strange Journey, this is also kind of what I would kind of think of as where they start to expand a little bit, and we start seeing solo records and side projects start to emerge. And so like Knows Death is Silent comes out around.
Beautiful
then.
album. Beautiful album.
Such a good album. But I think what I loved about it is, kind of circling back to that Wu-Tang idea almost, is that it still felt very Cunning Linguist. The guys are all involved. You're in there too.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, it never felt like it was, it was something different, but it also could be part of the kind of lineage of Cunning Linguists. It didn't feel like, I'm doing this away from Deacon and Natti. It's like, this is just kind of No leading the charge.
No, let me get this off, and that's the Deacon and I with NWL and, Natty's solo project. And, it's you break off, quote unquote, because you have your thing to do, but it's always under the umbrella of the larger thing, right? These are all sort of in a weird way, they're all Cunning Linguist records, whether it's Excrementals or, like you said, or Sloppy Seconds, or it's Strange Journey 1, 2, or 3. These all feel like an extension of sort of the blood, the lifeblood of Cunning Linguist in a way, And by the way, I'm on record for saying, the side projects alone, are as good as a lot of other people's, their legitimate body of work, and I think that's the true power of a No or a Deacon or a Natti, is that, hey, yeah, we're gonna do the side stuff, and we'll push the brand,
Yeah, I think that's such a great point too, is not only that they stand on their own, but they are kind of part of the overall. Because I was thinking about, like, when I was creating my rundown, I was like,
yeah,
do I get into the side projects? Like, because there's enough to get into, but just
have to.
But it feels essential in the same way that, like, if I'm talking about Wu-Tang, it's like I gotta talk about Liquid Swords and Only Built for, like, I can't just
my favorite record, by the way, my favorite Wu-Tang record is Liquid Swords. Hands down.
That's always my favorite too. But it's so essential. And I did want to get into that, of the NWL album. That is, I think, my favorite side project of the Cunning Linguists.
Thank you, brother.
I truly love that. And I still quote Satellites to this day, because
Crazy.
I love your line about, I study the code of Hammurabi for a hobby.
Yeah,
I got 2 copies.
I got 2 copies. But also facts. Also, that was not just a line. That's real talk, man. That record is to this day, that record is going into its 11th year, man. Did that record almost 11 years ago, man. And it's crazy. That record is crazy.
Can you take me back a little bit to that time, and just, y'all were doing the NWA parody videos and just going all in, like, what were what was kind of the idea, and just kind of embracing the humor of it too?
So if you're ever around us, and hopefully we get a chance to hang at some point, we're nuts, man. Like, we're we are the very definition of, like, always laughing. You know what I mean? Like if I'm talking to any of the fellas, we're always, like, cracking up. And so what we kind of wanted to do with the NWL stuff, specifically the promo stuff, is we wanted to throw people off a little bit, because we wanted to make them think that they were getting something that they weren't necessarily getting, to be honest. So we started doing this sort of parody, silly stuff, because that's just kind of who we are when we're together. But we knew that, hey, we'll put this out and people will think this is going to be some bullshit, and if you go back to some of those threads back in the days, people were like, oh, I don't know about this record. Like, this record is going to be trash, because they took the bait. But we knew that we were giving people this really hard hitting, musical, genre bending record. We knew what we had, but we knew we had to kind of throw people off the scent a little bit.
Well, yeah, I remember covering it, and covering it in the blogs, and, like, at this height of the blog era, and just I had so much fun, like, just sharing those teaser videos, and, like, I remember Deacon, like, kind of telling me, like, this is kind of like you said, it was like, we're going to throw him off the scent a little bit. So play along with it. Like kind of do
Yeah.
it. And so I was having fun, just like being like, oh, I'm getting it. I got the inside info on it.
Yeah. It's like, we knew we had a record that was really gonna like alter people's perspective about what hip hop music was and could be. But at the same time, we wanted to have a little fun with it. Like we knew what we had in the hand. We were like, we can't wait till they get this because again, people were kind of up in arms about it. They were like, this is gonna be some bullshit, like legitimately, people thought it was gonna be like a bullshit record. And after we dropped it, like you said, it became a lot of people's favorite record.
Yeah, people might, younger fans might not even remember this kind of stuff, is like, because there were like in that kind of mid 2000s, there were like just people putting out joke projects almost in a way.
Right.
Like it was just like, it was like kind of parody song, like just kind of random, like kind of messing with the fans a little bit.
Yeah, stupid shit.
Yeah, it'd usually be like a free album or some free, download, right, just because it was that kind of era. And so you could see like why somebody would kind of, like their radar was going off. Oh, it's one of those, like they're doing one of those. And then you just completely blindside them with this.
Man, crazy. This is a stupid record. That record is, I still like to throw that record in, and those skits, I like to go back to those videos. And to this day, they still have me just cracking up. To this day, they're just super funny and super silly. But also, the NWL project again. Going back to Deacon, it was Deacon's way of tricking me into staying in hip hop. Because we literally went from KY Aliens to to Guest Verse to, hey man, why don't we just kind of work on a project together? And I was like, oh, okay, I'm here. And again, I give Deacon, I think with NWL, it's kind of crazy because it's like, okay, he's really doing a good job and kind of keeping me around. Cause I think he could see, if I let Sheist disappear again, it's over, and to this day, I give him nothing but kudos for that, because he really kept me around. He kept me around. That's what NWL was. NWL was a trick project to keep Sheisty Khrist rapping. real talk, real story.
I have to thank Deacon again for that one. So well,
yeah, man.
So we have those. We got no solo album, NWLs around that time, but then CunninLynguists comes back together for Wonderology, and this is another one where that's some people's favorite CunninLynguists, that they think that that's the essential one.
Thank you.
And so
I'm kind of in that boat.
You're in that.
I'm kind of there.
I'm wondering, what do you kind of think of it as? I do almost feel like A Piece of Strange and Dirty Acres, maybe just because the time frame and the style are like complementary pieces in a way.
Right.
Wonderology feels like a whole different animal, and like that sound wise and concept wise, that they're just attacking it from a different angle. What were you kind of experiencing with that album, and where do you kind of do you rank it as kind of the top CunninLynguists album?
So it's interesting. So obviously, you can't disrespect A Piece of Strange. No one can disrespect that record. That record was such a quintessential piece of hip hop history. But to me, Honorology was like No being like, who's fucking with me? If you go back and you listen to the production on that record, No is just shitting on everybody on that, and it's so subtle, and then of course the concepts and by the way, I'll give you a little bit of I'll give you a jewel. I don't think I've ever said this ever in public, but Crit, obviously Crit is on the record, but I actually dropped a verse on that before Crit, and what's funny is I remember No was like, he always calls me Sheisty Khrist. Anytime Sheisty Khrist, he says completely Sheisty Khrist every time, so Sheisty Khrist, we want you on this record. You know, he's like, but do you think you're gonna make the cut on this? And I'm like, bro, come on, like, come on, man. You know, like I'm about to put my foot in this verse's ass. And he's like, you know, and we potentially have you know, Crit on this record. And he's like, you know, you might be thrown off. I was like, look, man, I have nothing but love and respect for Crit. If Crit, you know, if Crit comes in and does his thing, then there it is. I have to bow down to that. And that happened. So that's a lost verse. That verse exists out there somewhere. There's a Sheisty Khrist murder verse somewhere that I don't remember at all. You know, if you played it right now, I wouldn't remember one word of it. But that's a little jewel. That's a little jewel for you.
Well, that'll be you know, 20 years from now, the CunninLynguists lost set. That'll be
that's it. Yeah, the lost tapes. Yeah, the lost tapes. The lost tapes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but that's great because you think about, you know, when you think about like Crit in that era, like that's when he's like just emerging on a wider view, like, and so like. And I love that. Like, you know, Crit was like at that time, like he was even working like with like collective efforts in Atlanta. Like he was just doing dope verses for everybody.
Man, the guy's a beast, man. I mean, that, you know, I remember it. You know, Crit is so good that I actually remember the first time seeing that black and white Crit video and being like, this dude is special. You know, like, you know, to me, he kind of gave me, and some people will see this as blasphemous, but he kind of gave me Andre 3000 vibes. You know what I mean? Like there was something about Crit that you knew that he was just like, he had something else. That was just something different about him. And yeah, so he was showing up on records, man, and just delivering time after time after time. You know, what an incredible artist. He's more than an MC. He's more than a rapper. Crit is an artist, man. And yeah.
So, you know, after that album, we get kind of back into the a little bit of the side projects getting mixed in again, and we get our first Natti solo album, Still in Motion. And
yeah, man.
I love that album. But it was, I think what was most fun about it almost was you had just gotten so used to kind of like the tag teaming of Natti and Deacon. And so it was really enjoyable to kind of hear him in the lead, kind of on his own. Obviously, Deacon is still involved in the album.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But just kind of hearing Natti as his own artist was just really enjoyable as a fan.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say enough, you know, about Natti. You know, it's funny, you know, Natti and I talk pretty much every day, you know, and we probably talk for about 2 hours every time we talk. What's funny is my wife, not to get off the scent of what you're saying, but my wife always knows that I'm talking to Natti because we talk loud as shit when we talk. So she literally will walk in the room and she'll go, "Hey, Natti," you know, into my earbuds or into the phone. Because she knows exactly who I'm talking to. But yeah, but being able to your point though, but being able to see him in all of his sort of solo glory, you know, really kind of gives you a perspective of Natti, who, by the way, you know, probably his most overlooked skill set is his hook writing. The dude is an incredible, like literally, no joke, Natti has never written a bad hook. You know, and a lot of the things that you hear other people do, like Natti wrote it, you know, like he's incredible, man. What an incredible, what an incredible writer, what an incredible person, but like, what an incredible hook writer. His hook writing skills are really off the chart. Like Natti could literally be a millionaire for hook writing, you know? I mean, in fact, if anyone is listening to this and they need hooks, call Natti from CunninLynguists because he will not fail you. He's incredible. But yeah, but Still Motion was an incredible record, and you know, and again, in sort of an expose of really the genius of, you know, strangely enough, CunninLynguists, you know.
So you know, earlier you're talking about kind of your origins with Natti. Do you feel like that Gods of Rap record maybe kind of gives us all maybe a little kind of peek at what it was like back in the day as y'all were kind
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I won't tell you what they called me. I um, well, I'll tell you, anyone who knows me, they call me Lefty. So if you're ever around, and you'll always hear everyone refer to me as Lefty. And you know, we were just we were a little different back then. You know, so I do think the Gods of Rap record was kind of a throwback to like Militia. You know, the early days of just sort of aggressive hip hop. You know.
Mm, yes. So, Cunning Linguists, after that solo album, they get back to the Strange Journey series, and really kind of one of the more expansive kind of guests, in terms of those series. I mean, they had Blue on there, Del the Funky Homie Sapiens on there, the West Coast representation, Zumbi from Zion I. I was just really kind of into that. Do you remember any kind of like purposeful, idea for them to like, oh, we want to kind of get that West Coast flavor in there?
No, I just think the guys are, the guys are just always ahead of the curve. And I do think one of the things that Cunning Linguists does, Cunning Linguists is essentially a group that loves hip hop first, right? So if they feel like someone is not getting enough props, or if someone is out there doing work that needs, it's not just like one of these things like, oh, so-and-so's hot, let me put that person on my record. It's like, no, this person isn't really getting enough respect, and let's put this person, on a record. It's just it's really about love, for love of the craft. And obviously those folks are folks like Dale the Funky Homo Sapien and E40 they're gonna push the brand, so that's there, of course. But like, it's like, also it's kind of a stunt, because it's just once again saying, hey man, no matter who, no matter what, man, I got something for them. I was actually on the internet today, or last night. I couldn't sleep last night, and I came across a No tweet where he said, name the rapper that you like, and I can point to the Cunning Linguist record that you'll like. You know what I mean? Which I thought was brilliant, because it's like, yeah, oh, you like so and so, okay, then this is the record for you. And it's like, that's the Cunning Linguist way. The Cunning Linguist way is we have something for everybody, and in the process of having something for everybody, we're not going to sacrifice, or we're not going to not sacrifice. We're not going to dilute the brand one bit. We're only going to expand it, and I don't think anyone, does. I don't think anyone does that,
That's a great point. And two, what you were saying of like kind of giving others shine that deserve it.
Yeah, man.
On that album is, Psalm 1 is someone I think of as like them kind of like giving her that spotlight, like, hey, y'all need to be checking her out. And then that's also, I think that might have been the first time Noah worked with Sadistic even, and then they even, go on to start doing full projects together. Also
an incredible MC. He is an overlooked writer. I actually see Sadistic as more of a novelist. He's definitely a hip hop artist, and he's an incredible hip hop artist. But me as a person who really pays attention to words and thoughts and ideas, I really see him as more of he's really more of a novelist. I wouldn't be surprised if Sadistic didn't have like a novel, somewhere, because he's such an impeccable writer, But again, like you said, working with Sadistic is like, hey man, I know about you. People need to know about you as well, Incredible.
Yeah, I always, like, in terms of that, like, I always appreciated when No did that Machete Vision record with Mark Speck, because I was just
Mark Speck,
man, more people got to be up on Mark Speck. So like, if the whole Cunning Linguist fan base discovered Mark Speck through that, like that made me happy. Like,
he's a legend. Yeah, he's a legend. I got to hang out with Mark in New York, and he's a good dude. He's a big polo guy.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny because I brought like some 20-year-old original like polo boots, the cookie cutter polo boots, you know, and he was like, yeah, man. I was like, yeah, I've only worn these like 5 times, man, since I had them, man. You know, but he's a polo head, man, and incredible. Also another incredible writer.
So, mentioning like Cunning Linguists, that connection to the West Coast, their next project, they do a whole EP with Eli and the Grouch. And I didn't see this coming. Like I never expected that. But it was so well done. And it almost kind of made me think of, like, I don't know if you remember, like the Far Side and Souls of Mischief had teased like they're gonna do a project, and it never came to fruition. And like this just kind of reminded me of like what that could have been, almost like just when you just have 2 groups and just throw them together, and it just works really well.
Yeah, that project specifically might be, just kind of thinking about it in the pantheon of like Cunning Linguist records, that EP might be the most overlooked, like I would say wrongfully overlooked project. You know, that record's got like gas station attendant on it, and I mean, oh man, just some bangers, man. That's a really good EP.
Absolutely. And so, I guess, if you're thinking of it more like, that's not a Cunning Linguist album proper, like it could get, thrown in the side projects too, kind of category. But in terms of, getting a solo record from all the guys, Deacon finally comes with his.
He does.
In 2015, and man, he knocks it out the park. And I think what I loved too was that he produced it, and it was just kind of like we were saying, like no often gets the credit in terms of the beats, and it was sort of like Deacon flexing, like, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do them all, I'm gonna show you. And just one of the kind of more incredible all-around performances in terms of just vocally and production wise from one guy.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, also, like you said, a really sort of introspective, it kind of gives you Deacon's story, and I think that's the beauty of these projects. I mean, if you look at No's solo record, and you look at Natty's solo record, and you look at Deacon's solo record, they all have the timbre of each of those individuals. They all feel like those persons, and that's the beauty of those records. It's like they all feel like, okay, this is Natty's spirit, this is Deacon's spirit, this is No's spirit, but none of them are like not incredible. You know what I mean? Like Deacon, when Deacon came out with Piece of Power, man, I mean, what an incredible record, and I got a chance to really, see him like put that whole record, together. That was a truly remarkable experience, watching him get that off,
And, in terms of like watching him do that, what, besides just it being his and not Cunning Linguists as a whole, did you ever like kind of sense when they're making something that's their own or a side project, is the formula very different than Cunning Linguists, or does it all kind of feel like they follow that same guidelines and kind of sensibilities that inform them?
Well, I think the most impressive thing is, we all have our favorite groups, right? I won't name any of them out of respect for what I'm about to say, right? But all of our favorite groups disappoint one way or another. Cunning Linguists, strangely enough, is one of those groups that just doesn't disappoint. I mean? It might not necessarily be your cup of tea, whatever it is, but you can't deny it. You know what I'm saying to you? It's like some records you hear from people kind of splinter off, and you go, man, they just totally missed the mark with that. They were trying to go in a whole different direction, or they overthought that, but the thing I know about a Cunning Linguist project is that no matter what it is, whether it's a solo project, whether it's a group project, whether it's something that, that just kind of coming out of the blue, I know the production values are going to be incredible. I know the writing is going to be incredible. And I know at the end of the day, it's going to have some kind of spirit to it that's going to make you it's going to make it to where you can't. Cunning Linguist puts out records. I see the records behind you there. Cunning Linguist makes records that you can't not like clump together.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? You have to collect everything. You know what I mean? It's not like, there's half of that shit that I just really don't deal with. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? So, I'm going to keep these these 5 or these 6 Cunning Linguist records up, or maybe even I'll throw in the Piece of Strange Things. And hey, I might throw in No's record, or I might throw in, this. It's like you have to have everything that comes out, because everything means that you might miss something if you don't have it.
Mhm.
And I've never seen a group deliver every fucking time. You know what I mean? Like even if it's excrementals, or it's a white albulum, or whatever it is, like it's delivery every single time. Not to put any pressure on the fellas, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, it's like they just don't fucking make bad records, man. So watching Deacon put that record together meant that ultimately, it's like, hey man, here's one more piece of fucking mastery, man. Here's one more piece of like brilliance, and I don't know how you feel about it, but that's how I feel about it,
Oh, no, I think those are all great points. And, kind of just jumping off what you said is Cunning Linguist really is kind of a group that is perfect for the completionist type of fan,
Facts.
because it's like you said, it's just, there's so many groups or even solo artists. And it's just like, you can kind of be like, oh, I don't like that portion of their career, or I forgot, I like them from this era, but not this era. It's like, it's just kind of impossible to kind of ignore Cunning Linguist records. It's like they all just kind of keep building on each other. And
they do.
It really feels like you got to experience it all to get the true whole story.
Yeah, and that is unusual. It's unusual in hip hop, and it's also one of the reasons why I'm on record, saying, Cunning Linguists may be the best hip hop group, of all time. It's at the end of the day, again, you can, as I say this, you can think of them. There are lots of people that you love and respect as a hip hop fan, but like half of that shit is like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and again, I won't name any names, but I know you can think. I know you're thinking of what I'm saying. We're not going to disrespect anybody, on this podcast, and nor do I mean to. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's one of the reasons why you have to respect Cunning Linguists in the catalog, because the catalog is dynamic and it's impressive.
I think that's completely true, because I think that's one thing maybe Cunning Linguist fans experience this, and just as somebody that's covered them and just been a fan, like that's always kind of bugged me that they don't get listed more in that kind of pantheon, because like you said, it's just, I don't think the consistency is able to be matched. Honestly, it's like,
I don't know one group. I mean, maybe they exist, and maybe you could put me on to them. I don't know one group that like consistently just gives you the best version of themselves, and in the process of like totally changing some shit up.
Yeah, it's I never feel like listening to, because like even their latest one, 2017 Rosa Zero Nyanho, like it never feels like I'm hearing just a retread and they're just kind of doing another version of what they put out last. Like they're always trying something different, and yet they're nailing it. And it's just kind of like, how y'all keep doing this?
Every time, man. Every time. And I've said to people, if there is a greater group, side projects included, out there, let me know what they are. And I mean, literally cannot miss. I mean, No just put out a new Built to Fade record. I mean, what an incredible fucking 80s, like incredible record, man. Incredible record, And it's like, it might not be your thing, but you can't deny the fact that it's not incredibly produced. You know, I hope you don't hear these kids screaming in the park behind me.
No, it's all good.
Okay. They've been screaming bloody murder for the last 10 minutes. I think a kid is being killed behind me, but
The next CunninLynguists album, that's the story.
yeah,
The
the kid killed. Exactly, brother. You know, no, that's it, man. But yeah, just such incredible work, man, for sure.
Yeah.
And again, Deacon's record, incredible.
Yeah. And so I kind of think of them, you know, that just kind of reinventing the wheel. It's like Rose, they came with like a whole new approach of, oh, we're going to roll it out in EPs, and we're going to, you know, talk about how, you know, sound seen as colors. Like, I'm just thinking, like, who's even doing that? Like, who's even thinking to make
Nobody.
a concept like that? And
Nobody.
yeah, it's just, and like you said, as they kind of veer off into the side projects, like No goes into a whole nother chamber on Built to Fade. It's like you wouldn't even know that's the No doing the hip hop if you didn't get told that, like, because he's just so good at just kind of doing a different sound.
And he can sing.
Yeah. And to me, like, we even see that on the off days, like,
yeah,
where you know, it's you, Natti, and Deacon, and like this record, you know, the record y'all did is like, it's almost like if Parliament Funkadelic did a rap album. Like, it's just like, it's like, it's straight up out of soul funky, you know, 60s, 70s. It's like I was just all in on that.
I'll give you an end. Here's another little tidbit. So I'll tell you how far back that record goes. So Deacon and I, we finished up NWL, right? And I'm sitting on Deacon's couch, and Deacon's like, man, he's like, what do you think about for the next record? What are you thinking, man? And I said, okay. I was like, I got it. It's like, we need to do a skate record, a funky skate record. This is like 2010. And he looked at me and he's like, okay. And so we didn't get back to that. We didn't get back to the Off Days record. But funny enough, you know, we did that record in like 3 months, man. You know what I mean? Like, literally, no, not 3 months. We did that record in 3 weeks. I'm sorry. So it took us longer to get that record mixed and mastered than it took us to do it. But we set on the concept for that record probably for 8 or 9 years before we put it out. You know.
That's what So
yeah, Deacon was like, "You're crazy." He was like, "You're crazy, man." You know what I mean? He's like, I don't understand how we're gonna do this record. And then of course 8 years later we do it.
So I'm wondering, like, when, you know, so if it dates back that long ago, I'm wondering, like, was there any kind of, did you always plan, like, okay, this is going to be Natty's going to be involved this time, and we're going to call it this?
Yeah. I mean, we knew immediately. We were like, okay, yeah, we got this NWL record off. Like, we're like, Natty's going to be on the next record. You know what I mean? Like, without like question. You know, so like that was discussed. Literally, we knew that, like, immediately we knew that. Yeah, I mean, and then we got it off. I mean, I can't overstress the fact enough that we were like, yeah, and Natty's gonna be on the next record, you know. And then of course that becomes the Off Days, you know.
And yeah, and to me, I you know, kind of on that point of you just sort of being part of the CunninLynguists family, is like, to me, the Off Days record is like, it's just sort of a CunninLynguists record in a way. It's
it
like, and it fits, it makes sense, you know, in the kind of the group, and it works well. It's kind of like, you know, I think of like when Method Man and Raekwon and Ghostface just like randomly did that album together. It was like,
right,
yeah, okay, that was cool.
It worked. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And it's that's a chamber, you know. I think you called it, you called it what it is, you know. But those guys they've been very beautiful to me in that regard. You know, they're like, hey man, you know, again, I think part of the plan to keep me around, man. You know, to keep me doing music, so I don't slide it, because they know as soon as I slide out, I'm out. You know, as soon as I get out this time, I'm out. You know.
We're going to be rooting for them to stay on you then.
I know. Yeah, they've been tricking me for a long time, man. So, you know, but
Yeah. So to kind of close out, I'm wondering,
Yeah.
is there one thing about Cunning Linguists that maybe beyond the music, beyond, the things that are tangible to the fan,
Yeah.
maybe something you've experienced, behind the scenes that you feel like Cunning Linguists needs to be known about them, that would truly add to the appreciation of what they've done?
Yeah, I do think the fans see this. I think they get a chance to sort of experience this. I think Cunning Linguist is for the fans, is authentic. It's like, like I said, man, I mean, um we're human beings first. And if you lived here in town, man, it's like, we get together and we don't even talk about music. If you lived here in my town, brother, I'd be like, I'd call you, I'd be like, yo, man, come over and have burgers, man. Come over and eat, and I think what you would quickly see is that everything is not, doesn't revolve around music. Everything really revolves around humanity. And I think that's one of the things that people see. But like Cunning Linguist to a person, like really gives a fuck about people, and if you ever go to a Cunning Linguist show, I mean, I've seen the guys, where, you have, you got a show, in this town, and then you got to like run and like, you got to run to the next town. Like I've seen the fellas like be almost sick to their stomachs, like knowing that like they had to like jump on the van and like go to the next town and like not be able to spend time with the fans, like literally like if there's one thing that really like bothers these brothers, at their core, is like not being able to interact with the people who they feel like have supported them, have continued to carry the banner of Cunning Linguists, and I've never really seen anything like it. It's like, a lot of times, man, people do their show, if you know how these things work, people collect their money, after the show. Usually the tour manager, whoever that person is collecting money while these guys are like, throwing stuff in boxes, and they're throwing the boxes onto the tour van, and then you kind of jump like, get us the hell out of here. And you would never see that at the Cunning Linguist show. And just know that if you've ever been to a show and you weren't able to meet the guys after, or like break bread with them, that they felt that. You know what I mean? Like they're like, fuck, you know what I mean? Like, man, like we didn't really get a chance to like hang out with folk after. I've never seen anything like that. Because again, most people they just want to make their money. They want to throw those, the records and shirts into the boxes, and they want to get the hell out of there and hit the next town. And but Cunning is different. So that's what I would say. That anybody who's a Cunning Linguist fan, like, you're putting your money into people that actually give a fuck about the craft, who give a fuck about the fans, and who really care about like the culture. You know what I mean? Like none of those things are sacrificed, with these guys. So that's what I would say. I don't know if that answers your question, but
No, that's
yeah,
perfect. Man, thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
of course, brother.
I really appreciate it. And man, where, anybody that's looking to keep in touch with you, follow you, check out any music, where can they go do that? What's the best way?
Yeah, man, I'm at Sheisty Khrist, SHEISTY KHRIST on pretty much every platform. Just follow me, and I always say I interact with people. If you hit me up, I'm gonna hit you back. You know what I mean? I'm not one of these people that act like I saw your message and you know what I mean? Oh, I'm just too cool for this shit. This is, it's just like, if you hit me up, I'm probably gonna respond to it. If not, you just said some dumbass shit, and it's not even worth. And I want you to know that you said some dumbass shit, so I'm not even gonna respond to it. But 99.9% of the time, you can find me anywhere at Sheisty Khrist, and like I said, I do interact with folks.
So I'll just tell anybody, Sheisty is a great Twitter follow, always entertaining on there.
Thank you.
And yeah, if you're on Cunning Linguist Bandcamp, you'll see some of his projects on there.
No, it's true. It's true, man. It's true. Those guys, again, they've been tricking me into doing hip hop music since the early 2000s. You know, so so if you're a Sheisty Khrist fan, just know that Cunning Linguist deserves 100% of the credit. Again, them along with Vegas Posada, rest in power to my brother. For keeping Sheisty Khrist in hip hop, man.
Man, thank you, Sheisty. Appreciate the time.
Man, thank you, brother Ivy, man. I love you, man, and I can't wait to give you shit about some LSU stuff, man. You know how we do, brother.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it.
No doubt, man. One love, King.
All right. We are here after a great conversation with Sheisty Khrist. Glad to catch up with him and talk everything Cunning Linguists. Always good to talk about those guys. Such a great group, such a legacy they've had and built over this past 20 years that really deserves much more recognition. So we're glad to do our part to recognize them. Before we get going this week, we always like to leave you with a little listener lanyard. So Lynn, what you been digging of late? What you want to recommend to the people?
One of my favorite things to do, man. Come on here, do listener lanyard with you and talk about some suggestions because I love your taste. This week, I'm taking it to the anime world. I know you're a big anime. Well, let me not say big, but I know you're an anime fan when there's some good ones out. And there's a really, really good one on Funimation, the Funimation app. It's called, I'm going to give you the exact name of it because I was shocked when I watched this. And I'm going to tell you exactly how the person who told me about it described it to me. It's called Vivi, and it's Vivi Floriette's I Song. And I know you're thinking, Lyndon, what is that? Like, what are you talking about? Vivi Floriette I Song? Trust me, music does play a part, but that's not near what it's about. So I want to tell you exactly how the person who recommended it to me told me to it, because that's how I watched it. It's legitimately Terminator plus iRobot plus Butterfly Effect. Legitimately.
Okay.
And it's basically these the opening episode, the opening scene, the first 5 seconds starts off with you seeing humanity be destroyed. And I mean slaughtered by these AIs that are just walking down, gunning people down, picking up weapons off the street, just stabbing humans, doing it all. And this professor who really advanced AI to the point to where they could do this sends back his most prized creation to team up with the longest living android to stop the AI expansion and to save the human race. And the fight scenes are some of the best fight scenes I've seen. The story, some of the best story. And if you don't like to read subtitles, the dub is one of the best dubs I've heard, but the sub version is incredible. I was so blown away by this anime because, I host an anime pod and I watch all the different shows. This one is definitely easily a lock for anime of the year. Going to be one of the contenders. It's that good. And I can say it that early on in June.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, that's quite the hard sell on the Terminator, iRobot, and Butterfly Effect.
It has a little bit of everything because they're time traveling. If something gets messed, it gets affected, and they play with that. And then they play with the fact that, you know how iRobot, they would change vision of people based upon like the sensors and stuff they had on their like glasses or whatever. They play with that. They play with like a lot of the sci-fi tropes that I love, and they do it in a very new and intriguing and refreshing way, I must say. But it's on the Funimation app. It's really dope. And then for those who don't have Funimation and have Netflix, I have a suggestion for you as well. It's the new Fried show. It's called Fast Fried and hold on, I got you. I thought I had it up, Justin, and then closed. I had this up in pre-pro, but it's Fast Fried. Let me see. This is bad. Oh, Fresh Fried and Crispy. It's just about this guy who goes travel to the best cities for fried food. He goes to St. Louis, Savannah, Las Vegas, Baltimore, San Diego, Denver, Birmingham, and Cleveland. I'm a sucker for food shows. It's great.
So you were saying it was kind of a little bit like a Guy Fieri style.
Diners, drive-ins, and dive style. He basically meets with the different chefs. He goes to 3 places in each city, meets with the different chefs. He actually talks to customers about the menu. Like Guy Fieri stopped doing that. And he talks to like people while he's sitting there, while he waits for the food, talks to the chef, eats it. And at the end of eating each 3, he votes on which one is the best in the city.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to check that out. All right. Well, on my end, I'm going to give you a TV show as well and a little music. I'll start with the music first. If anybody has kind of followed me on Twitter or my interviews series, you know I'm a big Marlon Craft fan. He's really dope MC.
He is. Are you talking about the thing he just dropped? The cassettes that's a jump drive, like the Craft Extra. That stuff. I heard some of those. Those are fire.
Yeah, not that specifically. Those are dope though. If you know about those, check those out. But he put out an EP called Space recently.
Oh, I'm checking that out.
And so I'm gonna recommend that because it was really dope. It's really short. You know, I know these days it's a lot of competing for your time and your bang for your buck. So if you just need like a little short, brief little dose of music, check out this EP, Space, Marlon Craft. And if you haven't heard Marlon Craft before and you're like, man, I need to hear more of him, go back to his album 2019, Funhouse Mirror. That's a really great starting spot for his music. Just really well made, a lot of kind of jazzy kind of production, live band making a lot of it, doing the sounds. So I recommend Marlon Craft, Space in particular, but man, really delve into his whole discography if you're digging what you hear.
He is amazing. I think I heard him first on Sway when I saw one of his freestyles, then dove into him. The production he uses is great. I would say alchemy, Freudian-y, that type, like you said, live instrumentation, a lot of soulful sounding stuff he puts together with some very amazing lyrics. Like he's definitely one of the best MCs, I'd say, young MCs out right now.
Absolutely. And and if you end up going down that rabbit hole of just finding all his music, got some really creative music videos as well. So check out his YouTube. He's got some kind of some real fun ones to watch on there. Now, in terms of TV, I'm also going to recommend something from Netflix that you can watch on Netflix at least. It's actually from London originally, Britain, I should say. Toast of London is the TV show. It's a comedy. Matthew Berry is the star of it.
Oh,
he's hilarious. You might know him for What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show. But he's been in all kind. He's a fixture in so many kind of British shows. The IT Crowd, Gareth Marenghi's Dark Place, just all kinds of stuff like that he was in. But this is him in the starring role, and it's just complete kind of madness every episode. I can't get enough of it. And they just announced he's going to do a Toast of America or a Toast of Hollywood season. And so it's kind of the perfect time to jump on this show and catch up. It's a really funny comedy. He's basically a struggling actor. He thinks he's kind of a superstar, and he's really only getting like voiceover commercials and bad plays and like little lucking into little bit roles. He has a guy he feuds with that he sleeps with the guy's wife and they always run into each other, and it's just like a blood feud. There's just so many funny things like that. And even if you can't even get into the show, it's worth looking up the YouTube. There's scenes of them doing the voiceover bits where he's recording and he argues with the guy recording him named Clem Fandango, and every joke, every episode is, "Yes, I can hear you, Clem Fandango." That line is used in every episode, and he's always just having to voice the most inane and most just ridiculous voiceover bits. So he has to say just the word yes over and over again, or he has to make the sounds of bees. just absolutely terrible work for a voice for actor. And it's hilarious. I can't get enough of it.
I'm
And
definitely going to watch that because I need a new comedy. I know that dude from What We Do in the Shadows, but Met Him First, like you said, the IT Crowd, he's hilarious. So I'm definitely going to check this out.
Matthew Berry basically doesn't miss. Like if you can find any show with him, it's good. But yeah, Toast of London, he's the star, and so it's gold.
He basically has the same hair he has in What We Do in the Shadows. I just saw like the poster with like the white streak. He looks like basically like the same vampire character he is. That sounds hilarious.
Absolutely. So that's our recommendations for this week. Thank you again for checking us out. We hope you stick with us and keep enjoying the Never Less Than Ill podcast. Talk to you next time. Peace.
Peace.